Thanks, Ann. Go ahead and call this meeting to order. If you'd all please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, good morning. This is just kind of our follow-up general business meeting. It is December 7th, 2016 for the Broadwater County Commissioners. First on the agenda is Corey Swanson, County Attorney, weekly update, ongoing county business, decision. Come on up, Corey.
Well, I don't have much of an update to give you. The most pressing thing was the Calzagori deal, and we had that long meeting yesterday on the corner, which I thought went really well, although I was back and forth between that and court, so I missed most of it. There's a couple of other issues that I deal with that aren't just with you guys, and that's with the conservation district and some of these other cases. So I'm about to launch into a very good project with them that they started on already, but just giving me a heads up on that. That's, I can tell you more at some point, but at this point it's just a big project that's going to be a lot of research. And
Can you give us a general overview? Is it the Avalanche project?
it's just dealing with some mining issues.
Okay.
And then just wanted to check on what's on next week's agenda as far as, I have a trial starting on Tuesday, which is probably, it's a 2-day trial, maybe a 3-day trial. But, so I do have and then we had court canceled on next Friday, and we put it back on because we've got just too much stuff. So I do have you're doing trial prep and some other things this week, but didn't know what you have on Monday's agenda, in terms of if there's anything that I need to look at before then.
We don't have anything. It's an update from Dana. It's a monthly thing. Update from Brian. It's a monthly thing.
Dana probably won't make it because of his surgery.
Right, yeah. We have Verizon with a request that needs to go to the city first. I think he met with them yesterday, last night, and then will come to us. And then the last one is a Greenmont tax abatement, which is a policy issue and something we've done in this county quite a bit. That's it. Other than that, it would be mail.
Jimmy.
Oh, Jeremy, yeah, signing the contract for the building project.
Okay.
So,
the Verizon, is that for the tower
Mhm.
on the waterfront? Okay.
yeah, were you at city council?
They didn't discuss it last night.
Oh, they didn't?
No, but
Okay.
I've discussed it. We've discussed it many times, and I've talked to the guy.
So
The
city
last-
council, have they given a voted blessing or just a verbal blessing?
They had a preliminary go-ahead in order to continue the analysis of it. Due to the way that the tower and the railing and those Christmas lights are set up, they did have to configure a different way of how to set up that cell phone tower coming off of there. So I haven't met with the guy since they realized that. He called me, told me that's what was gonna happen, and they were gonna spend more time on it. So, and then we haven't at this point even seen the draft contract, so that's in the works, but, their intention is to move forward. They'd like to, but they haven't had a final vote because we haven't seen the final.
Okay. We won't, of course, be able to do anything more than just give our blessing, because it's not our tower. But he wants to, I think, just make sure he's got everything covered. So I expect that to be nothing major.
The land on which the tower sits is the county. correct?
Right, but the tower is the city's, it's not the county's. Park is 50-50, or half and half.
Okay. Well, I emailed you a funding request a week or so ago. We have some kind of hit a point where, yeah, and that's with the hearing on the whatever next Friday is. The 16th? Yeah. Hearing on the 16th it's a mental hearing, it's gonna take all day, and we've got some doctors there that I've got to pay, and I've got some other things that I have to do, so that's what that request was about.
We have Harold Blatty coming on the 27th. I think you've been advised of that. Don't know if you have, Nick. Debbie contacted him after getting that email. He's going to give us kind of, not a training, but more of a one-on-one explanation of how the budget works, what the different responsibilities are of the commissioners versus department heads, or not versus, but together with department heads. So I don't think we should do anything till we hear from Harold, just because we need that expertise. He's not going to get into the philosophy, but just the MCA, the Local Budgeting Act, that kind of thing.
So I'm gonna have at least 3 bills due before then. The DNA test, which I expect to be back this week, and those 2 experts. So the 2 experts are from a case that started in 1995, that continues to flare up with Bill. And the DNA test is from a case that I filed a year ago, last fiscal budget, fiscal year, when I had the money to pay for all these tests. We're going to trial again. In fact, we pushed trial off. It was supposed to be next week. We're going to complete this final test.
If you could get us some estimates on what your bills would be, that would be good to have that beforehand. And then we can evaluate where you're at with your budget, where you're at with these estimates. And have that for the 27th as well. Again, Harold probably won't get into much more than just what the lost figure is. But that would still be good information for us to have in budget.
Okay. I mean, it's not like there's a question of, is this legally allowed for the committee to pay for this?
I didn't
I
question
don't know my
the,
Harold's tutorial is gonna.
you have budget, it's $26,000 more than last year. You have parameters to live within, everybody needs to live within their budget parameters. And if you need more, then you need to work with us.
How
That's it.
do you think my budget is not 26,000 last year?
It is.
No, it's not.
Actually, I have it right here. Kind of hard to read, but I have cheaters for you. Last year's budget for the legal services, which is your department, was $211,470. This year, your appropriation, your budget for this year is $237,632. The difference is 26 grand. So if you, yeah, you can see both of them.
This is not at all what I've got for the.
It is, that's actually from an email from Debbie, that I printed that off from, both of them. So if you need extra help, just like with any department head, above and beyond your current budget, work with the commissioners. If you don't have this in your budget, which I would imagine at this point in the year you do, you certainly should, then there's no worries.
All right, I'm gonna go with what she's giving me.
Do we know if Faye Martinez went to Debbie
Teresa worked with her yesterday, but I don't have a list, I didn't ask for one.
I put a 17 calendar downstairs. That meeting on the 28th, 3rd. I hope I get the right date, first Tuesday.
The second,
Or the
yeah.
second. Yeah, whatever
Thank
day
you
it
for
was,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, good. And they're meeting with Black Mountain this morning at 9. Yeah, well, the first conference to decide what's
Yeah,
needed
the
for
phone
the
conference,
meeting.
yes.
The budget for 15-16. This shows 243,691.
243,691.
I'd like to see that, because I'm guessing you're on your proposed budget, not your actual. We go by the actual.
Where are you getting the 211 number?
That's your actual. Yep,
So the-
actual is 15-16, 211,470.
So the 243,691, you see that number?
Mm-hmm.
That was what? That was the amount that was,
That was your proposed budget from last year. That's what you started the year with. Your
Yeah.
actual budget ended up being 211.
no.
That's, yeah, it
No,
is.
no, okay,
It's
let's
right
let's
here.
use the terms
And
correctly.
that's,
My budget was 243,691. What I spent was 211,470.
exactly, yes.
Okay,
And
that's
that's what
not,
we build the next year's budget off of, is the actuals, what you actually spent. So
Okay.
that was the 211.
so you're using the word expenditure in place of budget. That's not correct. My budget was 243,691. I spent 211,470. Okay?
Yes,
So I came in
Yeah.
under budget.
yep,
I told you in a memo that I wrote to this commission in May, and I told you, gosh, it's been 5 times now in person, that contingency money, 15,844, that was unspent, that I needed that to carry forward. Because that's what I use for things like unexpected expert witnesses, tests for trial, which I'm doing, all these things. So the actual budget is, am I correct? It's 237,632 for this current year.
mhm.
Yes.
Okay.
That's your current appropriation.
Yeah,
Yes.
which is 6,000 less than 243,691.
But 26,000 more than what your actual budget expenditures were for last year.
That's
Yes.
expenditure, that's
That
not
is-
budget.
It is, it is.
No,
We
budget-
budget the next year off of the actuals.
That's not what a budget is, though.
It
That's
is.
an expenditure.
It is, yeah, you're right, so you go by your actual expenditures.
Okay. What
Yeah.
I told you was,
I know what you've told us you want. The problem, Corey, is that the general fund is like a marriage. Husband and wife have 2 different checkbooks, but at the end of the year, they have to actually bring those 2 checkbooks together and balance. The general fund is made up of, I don't know, 9, 12 departments. All those departments are in it together. If one falls short, the others need to make do and help that one department that fell short. You don't get to just keep your money or declare what you want. You actually have to live within the means of the general fund with everybody else. So it puts an extra burden on everybody to live within their means, spend within their budget, so that everybody has the money they need for the following year.
the thing that you've said repeatedly,
And I stand by that.
is that if you save that money,
Mhm.
then you keep that money,
Absolutely.
okay?
But in
This
the general
15,000
fund, Corey, it isn't the county attorney's money, it's the general fund money. So if the general fund ends the year with a surplus of $20,000, then that $20,000 is continued in the general fund budget, in a CIP for capital expenditures for the general fund,
Okay,
not for one department.
but,
If it's extension, extension doesn't share its mills with another department. department. So if they end the year with a surplus of $2,000, that $2,000 goes into a CIP for capital expenditures the next year. It does not go to the museum, for example, but they're a standalone department with their own floating mills. The general fund is several different departments. So the idea is the same, it's just spread between a family of departments.
Okay, fine. There wouldn't be a reason for me to have a CIP. I think we can agree on that.
No, we can't. Computers,
Okay,
desks, you've spent a lot of money on those
okay,
things.
fine.
Those are all capital expenditures.
Okay,
So yes, there is a need for you to have a capital account
okay, but let's
in the
back
future.
up here.
Sure.
When I came in, we were just finishing the first year of the new agreement between the city and the county as far as where that interlocal funding went. Where it went was just parked in some line item, nobody knew what to do with it.
None of that's true. We
That
had
is
an
still- that is
interlocal
true.
with the city for a long time.
But as
It
far as
goes
the funding
into-
changed, the funding changed because the county attorney went to full-time. When Carla was here, then she said, no, that can't be an extra paycheck to me, that needs to
No,
go to
it
the
was
office."
never an extra paycheck to either John or Carla. It wasn't. It
I'm
was
just going off
into
of
the
what-
general
I'm
fund and
going off
was
of what I
given
was
to
told.
the county attorney's budget.
Okay, fine. I'm going off of what I was told by the staff when I came in and said, what's this extra money here? And this is the money from the city. The point is, there
Debbie can
was,
actually clarify a lot of that if you have extra
that's
questions.
not the main point of the conversation. I'm trying to preface it. to
Okay, I
get-
just wanna make sure
I
that you're
get about
talking
half a
about,
sentence out and you keep interrupting me, so at some point I'm.
but I wanna
going to-
make sure that you're talking about things actually.
Okay, great. The point is, last year, my first year, there was a line item, I don't remember which one it was, with a lot of extra money in it, it was the city money, okay? And so I asked Debbie to put that into the contingency line, 199, and then a portion of that went to fund the market adjustments for Windy and Brook. And I also requested that the money from the city interlocal be placed into that contingency unless it was already being used for those other things we just talked about. My first year, when we did our first budget, I was told, and in fact what the commission did, is they let that excess money remain in 199 and carry over for the next year. That's what we did the first time around. The second time around, so this idea that automatically goes to the general fund, that's not what you did the first time, the first budget when I was county attorney. That remained in line 199. So this time around, that didn't happen. That got pulled out, and I don't know where it went to general fund or wherever you spent it on. The concern is this: at the time, I told you that I had these additional expenses that were expenses I had to pay in the fiscal year where we are right now, and that I was planning to use that funding for it. I was providing that explanation so that you would understand I was not only living within my means because I had identified funds within my current budget to pay for those, but I also was telling you that there are certain expenses that I cannot anticipate until they happen. If there's a trial that comes up that requires, we're on 4 rounds of DNA tests now, it's not like I have any way of foreseeing that 9 months in the past when we're preparing our budget request. What I'd asked for was specifically that contingency fund. Now, if you're determined, first of all, next time we have 3 commissioners here, I'm gonna ask for a vote on this, because it's a commission, it's a 3-person commission. But secondly, if you're determined not to replace any of that money in that contingency fund, which I understood was the agreement that we had from past budget, then all I'm gonna ask is, fine, when we have these unusual requests that I have to pay for, then I'm gonna submit them and ask that they be paid for out of the general fund or whatever. My budget did not go up, it went down. Expenditures, yes, expenditures were at 211, okay? So all these speeches about we're not gonna punish people for saving money, well, no, you did. And I agree that there were ways that I could cut money out of my request that I had asked. That request had a few line items that were larger because it was, if I get a deputy county attorney, for instance, I have to pay for that person's, their bar dues and their training and some of those things. But if I'd known right up front, which I never got the answer until right before you voted on it, no, there won't be a deputy county attorney, I could have told you, okay, well, here's $1,500 you can save from this line item or this line item, or whatever. But the payroll went up. From 15-16 to this year, payroll went up, okay? And when payroll went up and my overall budget went down, that means there's more money pulled out of the operational or other expense line items that is now available to do the things like deal with a complex trial that requires all these tests and experts. So part of the problem is you're saying budget when the word you should be using is expenditure. Expenditure, I understand, is 211,470. My budget was 243. My budget is now 237. Budget went down. The problem is, where really the rubber hits the road is, I have expenses. Expenses I told you about in May that I have to now pay for. And I don't have the money to do it. And more expenses coming next year.
A
When
couple
I
of
say next year, I
things.
mean next calendar year.
A couple of things. We have had a number of budget trainings that you have so far not been able to attend. Department of Admin, Harold Blatty's come to town for one, Debbie's done one for us. You have an idea of how you think it should work, but it is not the way the Local Government Budgeting Act works. So that training is essential, and that's why Harold is coming on the 27th. If you want to get this done before Harold comes here, I think that's irresponsible, because what it's doing is, quick, just give me the money before we get somebody that comes in and educates us on
Oh, that's ridiculous.
what this works.
That's ridiculous.
How this works.
Give me a break.
So, that is true though, you have not made it to a training, you need to understand the act, not just what your desires are. Every budget has expenses that they're obligated to spend. When you were able to keep the money in your contingency fund, that was an error on two fronts. The first one wasn't necessarily an error. We didn't have a problem with the general fund that year. So it was easy to go ahead and let the money stay, the excess money stay in the budgets. The problem is the auditors came in and said, how do you have expenditures from a contingency fund? You can't. That money has to go into a line item, so that when you have your expenses, you can say, this came out of 220 or 320 or 199 or something other than 199. You cannot have an expenditure out of a contingency. So unless it's a CIP, you cannot just have that in your line item. The commissioners are different. We can, because we put that money then into an object code. So that was an auditor's issue. As far as the excess money, last year we did have a shortfall in the general fund, and a big one. I don't expect we'll have it next year, and if everybody's responsible, then we can go back to being able to put more money into people's budgets, which would of course be a goal everybody wants to see happen. But we cannot do that if the rest of the general fund has a problem with it. Everybody involved with the general fund has to be a party to fixing that. This year it was public health. That is well on the way to being fixed. I believe next year they are going to be strong and not an issue. Will there be another issue? Will there be more meals taken out for another department? Perhaps. And then the general fund will have to tighten their belts again. That's the way it works. Harold is coming the 27th to educate the commission, as well as you if you're willing to come and listen. And Debbie can also answer a lot of these questions for you if you will talk to her about your budget. She understands the act. She also works very closely with the auditors all year long. Talk to her about this too. I understand how you want it to work, but we have to follow the local budgeting act.
This is the first time I've ever heard this, that the auditor said you couldn't have a contingency 199 that was your expenditure, because guess where all that came from? Conversations with Debbie, and conversations before this commission for a year ago when we did this. And so I have no problem feeling the pain or sharing the pain if we have a budget problem. What I'm telling you though is, this is not new expenditure, this is carryover from previous money. And then the second thing I would tell you is, I now have identified additional needs in my office, and I'm asking for, it's the other email I sent, I'm asking for the city of Townsend funds that are sent to the county for city attorney services. I'm asking those to be put into my budget, because
They
I would
are.
like to spend those. No, they're not.
They are, Corey, the city interlocal goes into the general fund, and that money is then used for county, that one for county attorney expenses for the city. Otherwise, you have the county citizens paying for city services. We don't do that. The interlocal is spent by your department on your services for the city. That we have an interlocal for DES, for law enforcement, and with the Justice of the Peace. It's the same thing. That money goes into the general fund for Justice of the Peace and DES, but it is spent in those budgets for their time on city stuff. It's in there, and again, you do need to sit down and talk with Debbie.
That's the point. All this stuff comes from my conversations with Debbie. I thought we had a clear understanding of what was going on. And I come up here and the rug gets pulled out. So,
That's not what I'm hearing, and that's why Harold's coming. Perhaps if Harold can be the one giving the information, then maybe it will be accepted in a different vein than it seems to be accepted from either me or Debbie.
fine. So, you seem that you're basically what you're telling me is I'm too stupid to understand the budget. I'm not getting it figured out. Okay, fine. Let me just send something back to you. What I'm perceiving is you have an absolute unwillingness, whether I'm stupid or whether Debbie's got it wrong or whether whatever. Bottom line is I have an expense that I identified last year before this budget was set that was above and beyond this. I have no way to stop that expense short of dismissing a very, very serious criminal case, and I'm not willing to do that. I am asking for your support in paying for that expense. I had identified back months ago a source of revenue for that, which you then took away. So fine, I'm a moron. I'm asking, are you willing to support something that's a very important function here, not just for me? Fine, you don't wanna support me, fine. The people in this community who are counting on the outcome of that case, and it's a very serious case. That's what we're getting down to here. I'll work on me figuring out how to not be a budget moron. I'm asking you to work on, be willing, for crying out loud, to support an essential thing that has to be done, that was identified long ago, and that I currently don't have the funds to pay for. That's it. That's how simple this conversation really is.
Okay, let's not get into the personal, because I don't think that serves anything. At the very beginning of this conversation, I said, would you get us the estimates so that we can work with you on that?
And those are
So
the same
I
numbers I
put that
emailed
out.
to you last week.
Can you give them to
I'll
me right
resend
now
them.
again? I think one was 3,000, and what was the other one?
One is 1,550.
Okay. And that is for?
That's for the Sorensen Labs, Utah.
Now, those, Wynn said he has paid in the past. Why is he and the law enforcement budget not paying for those now?
He told me he doesn't have the funds for it.
Okay, that stuff has been paid by public safety in the past, but we're gonna shift
They've
that to.
actually been paid by both.
They're paid by both.
They have?
It's a.
Okay, so we
it's a-
need
it's a
1,550
pre-trial.
out of your budget right now.
So a little history on that. When John Flynn was our county attorney, John Flynn paid for all that DNA, took care of all that stuff.
Okay,
Carla was the county attorney, the sheriff's office paid for all the DNA and all that stuff. So it was really, Carla felt that was part of the law enforcement side of things. John felt like it was his side because it was his evidence.
okay,
So that's just a little history. That was part of the conversation Carla and I had at Mako, was trying to understand whose evidence it was and what was going on.
okay. So we could look at pulling it out of the county attorney's budget, which is fine. We're at the beginning of the budget year, so there's no need for
You know what,
panic at this point.
I would like a third commissioner here, and I'm gonna ask for additional funds out of it, wherever hole you wanna pull them out of. Because, I'm not, that's fine, go ahead and take it down to zero, but guess what? I still have another half of the year left, and these are not numbers that I just made up out of my head. I have to pay for it, let's pick one, operational or professional services. Those are transcripts. I have a lot more transcripts to order, and I'm already down on that budget. So there's,
Who do you want us to defund so that you can have a cushion?
what I,
That's what you're asking for. There's money in your budget to pay for this stuff. Now, your $3,000 for your additional program, we've had other departments work with the commission in the past, just by communicating with us, and we've used the Metal Lines money for that.
okay.
So
what-
why
what-
not
what-
work with you on that?
What do you mean
Why
by
not work with us?
What do I have to do to work with you? That's what I'm wondering, because I brought it up repeatedly, and I've been told, go
So-
squeeze water out of a rock.
So, hold on. I know on both aspects of this, law enforcement comes to us, and a great example is the cadaver cooler. Said, hey, look, this is a need we have, we can't afford it, this is how much it is, and they present it as, okay. You know, we've talked with other agencies, so on and so forth, they lay out what they've done. The commissioners, the three commissioners said, you know what, we have money, whether it's from PILT or whatever, we'll just pay for it, cause it's a need, we can't have dead bodies sitting back in trucks or whatever. And just recently, we, at the cost of the district court, we were able to meet the needs of the commissioners and sanitation by splitting up that position's time to meet the needs of other departments for the need that the district court had in their clerk. So I think it shows that the commission is willing to work and try to figure things out. But what I don't see is anytime we have these conversations, it's very personal conversations. So I think the main key is that we just stick with business. Because I sit here and I watch Billy and I look, you know, this is a very personal conversation. So I know, without a shadow of a doubt, this commission has worked with every department head to meet the unexpected needs that come up throughout the year. I know from experience over the years and years and 13 years of being in law enforcement, in the last 3 years as the captain, that I come over here and I had a need and I shared those needs with the commission. They've been very gracious and been able to work. So you're coming to us from the aspect of these, you have 3 bills, you have 2 doctor experts and a DNA case that were foreseen, but were planned to be paid in this fiscal year. Whatever was said in the past, I'll actually use an excerpt from Montana Post that they told me, and I think that's what we need to as a county, is if it's not written down, it didn't happen. And we tell that to law enforcement all the time. And that's sort of where we're at, is we're in a position where a lot of animosity is brought up because this is what was said, but this is what was done. Nothing's in writing. And I feel from my own mishaps of not writing things down, that is a key in I think this commission has taken huge steps in writing a lot of things down in the last 6 to 7 months. So it's no longer he said, she said type of thing. It's written down. I know that this commission will work with department heads for unforeseen things. I know that. If it's to the point of, well, if we have to give and take here and you go through your budget and say, okay, look, this line item 220 operating expenses, this is what I have coming out of my budget this year. I cannot take any money from this budget. If that's, because honestly, that's how we went through the budget process this year. is we went through the expenditure budget and what you expended and looked at what you were budgeted. That's how we came up with your budget this year. We took, the last 4 years, and so on and so forth. So I would feel confident that if you were to go to your budget, and I understand you're busy, but if you were to go to your budget and say, look, I have all this stuff earmarked, I don't know where I'm gonna get this money from. That shows that you've looked at your budget, there's no possible way, and I understand your frustration with this 15,000, almost 16,000. I understand that was earmarked for your casework. I understand that, so I understand your frustration. So, I say all that to say, it is gonna have to be a time where we sit down, 3 commissioners sit down and just handle business and leave the personal out of it. Because that's when we get the, I'm an idiot, or so on and so forth, because I know none of us think that you're an idiot. I think very highly of you, and I don't think that you're an idiot, so, but when we get in these conversations, it turns very hostile very quickly. So we need to be able to back away from that and just handle business. So what I would suggest is you look at your budget, explain to us why you can't take any money from these line items, and then you come to us and say, look, I've gone through my budget, I can't do this, I'm asking for this. Just like the sheriff's office did with the cadaver cooler. We looked at our budget, we can't afford it, we've thought about billing other people, but then they don't use it as much, what can we do? And we, as the commission, said, we'll pay for it. And so they came with options, they didn't have many options, but they still came with options. So that's what I'm asking.
And I will tell you 2 things. Well, the only reason I said that is because, in my view, Commissioner Overton's talking to me like an idiot, and saying repeatedly that I don't understand it, blah, blah, blah. So that's why I flippantly said that, so I apologize for that. What I will tell you is, I foresaw that at some point we would have this kind of a, hey, this bill is due now and I don't have the money conversation.
Sure.
That everything I did last spring was intended to prevent that by saying, I expect these things are gonna happen. Let's save ourselves the pain and set aside this money now. And you don't have to, it's not a new appropriation, it's money carried over from the previous year.
Sure.
So that's what I was intending to accomplish, so.
And I guess my only, and I said this last Monday, I believe, in the meeting, the only area that I feel that we failed in the budget process is just the better communication. These are what we as the commissioners came up with for cuts. Look at your budget because we need to make cuts. And we didn't do that, and this is sort of why we're sitting where we're at today. But we were under the gun too, so, you know, at this coming, and I said it, and to be honest with you, I wish I was gonna be a part of the process next year, because I think we've made some good headways. I think Mr. Delger will glean from some of the things that we set in place, but it really has to be, and I know every department head is super busy, but when it comes budget time, we have to set these times aside where we can say, okay, because normally what happened was I went home after the day and went through the budget, made some cuts, came the next morning and said, okay, look, this is where I sit. What should have done, instead of coming in here and said, okay, this is the cuts that I foresee that we can do, I should have went to each department head and said, okay, I spent many hours looking at this is what I cut, what are your thoughts? And I think if we handle that in that aspect, it will make this next process a lot easier. But we can't go back and change that, so we're here where we're at right now. Frustrating on a lot of different levels. It's frustrating on your level, beyond belief. It's frustrating on our level because we have all these conversations with a lot of different department heads through the last 3 weeks. I don't feel anyone really won through the budget process, but I think next year, a lot of people will win because of what we set forth. And even though it was a horrific budget season, I think this coming budget season will be 10 times better.
And I think we can actually solve 2 of your problems, or at least come close. The 3,000 you want for your new program. Federal mineral royalties, we expected $470. We actually got 2,000 over. Is there a reason why that $2,000 cannot be used for your program as has been used for other programs or computers in the past? I would say no. That doesn't cover
Restriction on what it's used for? I don't know if there's
just past practice, so it can be used for anything.
Yeah, it's not.
We've used it for capital expenditures, which
Yeah.
are computer programs, computers, printers. And then also, you have a line item that you actually have not spent anything and have $3,000 budgeted for. We could, at this point, take the balance out of that, even though it's the wrong one, but we're through a budget amendment, you just take 330 and put it into,
Where are you looking?
in your budget in the.
Line item 330.
330, publicity, subscription and dues. Now it's,
So that one, what did you set that as, 3,000?
Yes.
Okay, so that was one that I identified as higher because of expecting
Possible
deputy county attorney. So that one could have been reduced anyway. That was one that I would have told you to reduce to the, oh, okay, here's the issue with that. If you look back, at the end of the year, that one was overspent. Remember that?
Last year it was overspent.
Because I had wanted, it was one of those ones where I said I wanted money paid, I want something paid out of this line item and this line item, and Debbie paid it out of this. I said, well, it's over, and she said, don't worry, we'll do a budget amendment at the end. So I think as a result of that, we lost an accurate benchmark of how much to spend on that. So.
you had a history of 1,900, 1,700, 1,800, and 1,700, so
Yeah.
that's
it's
probably where she was coming from.
2,000 is probably fine there, you can take 1,000 out of that, but the things that are due on that are coming up shortly after January. It's my
And-
annual.
And we understand that, this is not set in stone, it's a projection. And that's why the law gives us the ability to do budget amendments, that's why the auditors say you can shift within a fund, that's why we do bottom line budgeting. But here's the other one, for the 1,550 that you need, if you look at line item,
I don't have the current, what I have in my current budget right now.
and mine is from 11/29, so it's a couple days old. But if you look at operating expenses, you currently have $3,100 left, a current expenditure of $4,000. If you took 1,550 out of that, what you have left is 1,572. If you divide that by 4,000, you're still at 39%. At this point in the year, what we're looking is for people to be in the 30%. 33 is perfect, 39 is not that far off. So you have the money in your budget right now for actually both those things, but if we use the federal mineral royalties, then you've got the money right now. That's not to say that in March or April, you may not come back and say, okay, now I've got another trial and I've got another big expense. At that point, if every line item is looking at zero and it's, then we do some of the things that Nick just talked about. What we did to help out Val and her missing reserves. What we did with the refrigeration unit. What we did with Nick years ago with the prison cooler. Yeah. That's common practice from us, but at this point, you have the money in your budget, so my suggestion would be utilize that, work with us with the mineral royalties, and I think your problems are solved at this point. But that's why we do quarterly reviews of the budget too.
And part of, I can see from both aspects of this. I can see that, okay, I have these things, this is what I planned for, my plan has been hijacked, so to speak. So now, when you look at your budget, you're like, well, I guess all I'm saying is, because I can totally understand where you're coming from in this aspect, is there's some areas that we can work with for right now within your budget. But it's like Madam Chair stated, is that's not saying that you're not gonna come back in front of us if you have 3 more cases that need DNA, or 3 more cases, or 2 more cases that need expert witnesses. That's not saying that. And we expect people as commission, because it's happened in the history I've worked with this county, same department heads coming time after time to the commission and saying, look, we're really tight, we don't know what to do, this was unforeseen, one of our deputies hit a elk and totaled the car, what are we gonna do for a vehicle? We expect that stuff. For right now, and not so, for right now, all we're asking is that you just take a look at your budget. But it's not, I'm not saying that you're not gonna need money in the future. I totally understand what you're saying, and chances are you probably will need money in the future for these cases that you have coming up. So, that's my suggestion, because I know you'll probably need money, because you had certain things earmarked, and we can only take so much from each line item. You know, but because we are so new in the fiscal year, there are some things that we can do within the budget and then fill those holes. When it's a bad way to look at it, but when the problem arises, then we can fill those holes, so to speak. When we've extinguished the options that within your budget right now. So, and I think that's, with just business talk, that's the whole point of what was being said this morning. Okay, but
So the only ones that I'm still gonna have to come back, I'll do those, and I have to come back on these doctors. The way it works is, for their actual travel expenses and their time, their testimony time, the state pays for that.
okay,
The state doesn't pay for their, so that helps a lot. The state doesn't pay for their prep. And so one of these doctors in particular, I have to look at the number, it's ridiculous how much he makes. But the prep time is, I have to look at the number, because he did reduce it. I did some things to reduce it significantly, but that one I do have to pay for, soon. I mean, he's saying, I'm not gonna, he says, I won't justify unless I get paid in advance, so we're working with him because of, doctors. But that one is in 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks, it's next Friday.
so I think with the $2,000 from the mill, the federal,
Mineral
mineral,
royalties.
sorry, thank you. The federal that should help.
We were gonna use that for the, so here's what happened.
Okay, so
That was-
I'm misunderstanding, and maybe
I thought
maybe
that
I'm the
was,
idiot.
we were discussing that.
So-
We were discussing
Nobody's an idiot.
For the computer program. So here's how, when I came in here, there's no electronic case management system. There was something before, but it didn't work very well. But the volume in this office is astounding that there's no electronic case management system. I mean, you can't do it. Just the deadlines and the way you manage everything, you basically are chasing paper all the time. So we found the cheapest and yet good program we can. And we found the cheapest way to do it, and which is hamstrung us, because ordinarily what happens is they come in, they bring a team, and they spend 5 days with you, and they fully implement everything, and they train you, and that would cost like about $8,000 to $10,000. So we can't do that. in addition to what we're doing. So there's 6,000 bare minimum to do. And frankly, I'm shocked we got it at that rate. So I paid 3,000 out of my budget last year. I had the money last year. Had I known this was gonna be an issue, I would have paid it all then. I should have done that, but I didn't because I thought the money was gonna be here. So that is, we are on pause. We've been on pause for 8 months to not implement this system to basically manage our caseload. So the longer we wait, especially now with the transition of staff, it's one of those things where I either need to do it soon or I just need to cut my losses on the 3,000 we already paid.
But,
So-
We
but
just got
also,
the money, Phil.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I was
Okay.
just kind of background on this. So
But-
that's,
right, but that would come up from a CIP, that could come from a CIP as well, because,
I don't think a software can be considered capital, but she just, I'm saying, what she's saying is use the 2,000 for the royalty and 1,000 from another one of mine to do it, is what she's suggesting.
oh, I thought we were talking about these 3 bills.
We can,
That's
what's your
one.
guesstimate on the witnesses?
I have to go back and look at that because he sent me a revised estimate that's lower. We were gonna have him here and then we just had him do vision net and that saved us a lot of money, so.
One of the things
I don't know
is
what it is
your
like.
bottom line budget's at 33%. So, I have no idea what your cost is looking at, but if you take from a few of these a little bit, you should be able to come up with it. Again, you're right on par with where you should be. And use the budget you have for now. If you need more later, come to us. We'll work with you. We've worked with everybody. I think we have a very solid record of that. And I want to continue it.
Okay.
So,
Alright. Well, alright. There's another tough one, but it's a few months out, so we'll talk about it when we get to that. I'd say it's 2 months out, maybe 3. I don't know, it'll be a lot, I don't know how much it'll be yet. Okay, alright, well, I will work on this and I will,
Thank you.
I will dampen my frustration.
And if it helps, you're in the same boat as a lot of people. Nobody likes the budget this year, and that includes the 2 of us. Yeah, it should have been better. I still don't know why it wasn't. Just think expenses went a lot higher than our increased revenue. But one of the things that's in our audit report every single year since I've been here is inflation is not keeping up with expenses. We haven't gone back to the voters. So what that means is we need to continue to tighten our belts because expenses are doing this and increased revenue is doing this, and you can see where that's going. We're all feeling the hurt. But yeah, you're in the same boat as everybody else.
Well, and I made a concerted effort both times that we've done it to cut line items where I believe there was excess. But anyway. So nothing on Monday's agenda to worry about right now, what you're telling me.
No, sir,
Nope.
All right.
unless you wanna listen on the signing of the building project, that's
Is
it.
there any hiccups there that we'll worry about?
Nope.
And we made all the votes, it's just signing the contract. Just FYI, I guess there's 2 FYIs. One is the contractor came back with a savings, and that was sent to Mike as a what do you think? But I think that's something that they're gonna bring forward, so it'll be a
With the
little bit less
contract,
than the original price that we approved.
Okay.
And then the other thing is Harold Blatty's replacement has been found,
Oh, who's that?
Eric Bryson. Have you met him
I
yet?
have not.
I know the name. but I don't
He
know
is
the name.
the Chief Administrative Officer for Lewis and Clark County.
Oh.
And throughout the state, he is probably the most brilliant person we have in local government. He's amazing.
Very nice.
So I think he's gonna be excellent.
Was that like after the session, was that fine?
No, he's gonna start part-time
Oh.
now, I think in January it said, or March. So Harold wanted somebody that he could kind of introduce around the legislature. He has so much respect, he wants to help somebody else get there faster.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then when Harold's end date is, I don't know. original plan was 3 years, so I don't know the decision there, but it's pretty exciting news, I think. I know Harold's been stressing about who was gonna take over Mako.
Yeah.
In Manera,
Yeah.
Mhm.
it's been there forever.
Oh,
How long's
man.
he been there as executive director?
I've heard his name the whole 13 years I've been here.
Well, yeah, Lane knew his predecessor when she was clerk and recorder, and that was 20, 30 years ago.
So,
Yeah,
he's been around here my entire career.
yeah, so,
Thank you.
Take care.
Yep, thank you.
thanks. Anything else for the good of the order?
Nope.
All right.
Yeah.
Billy, public comments.
Well, it's nice to see you guys made a stepping stone there, and instead of telling Corey to, this isn't a money tree, to go find your own money. You guys worked with them and did something this time, so.
Well, and it is often up to department heads to find their own source of money. There's grants out there for a variety of departments. If you want more money, you can write a grant or ask the citizens. I always suggest go find your own source, go write a grant, go for a donation from BCDC, that kind of thing. So, yeah, it is very much the responsibility of department heads to fund their departments beyond what the citizens give in mills.
We like to work with everyone.
Anything else?
Nope.
All right. With that, we are adjourned. It is 8:59.
You been out plowing yet?
No, I just wanted to sign up yesterday.
Did you?
Yeah, he's been on me for.
I had last night, they were pretty busy up in the canyon.